So let's begin with a simple prayer. You can try to repeat this after me. This is a prayer to invoke the divinity within us to guide us toward light and love. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. One last time. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So I'm grateful to be here with you today. And
Recording in progress.
so this is generally a forum of question answers. So I'll start with a few words, and then if you have any questions, we can discuss them. So I'll start with a question. How many of you think that we have free will? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, free will. Okay. How many of you think we don't have free will? Okay, that's nice. One time I was asking this question, and most people raised hand the first time. Second time, a few raised hand, and third, after that there were some people. One person didn't raise hand either way. Then I asked him, "What do you think?" He said, "I don't think I have the free will to answer this question." So now, in general, whenever we function in life, say if we are standing talking with someone, and somebody whom we know, they just push us and walk by, and we may look at them, and say, "Hey, you shouldn't have pushed me." And that person may look at us. Now, even before we respond, however they respond, our very statement, "You shouldn't have pushed me," that itself implies the existence of free will. That means you acted in a particular way, but it was not the right way to act, not the proper way to act. There was another way to act, and you should have acted that way. So any should statement that we make, be it about others or about ourselves, that implies the existence of free will in others or in us, depending on for whom we are using it. So here we are not necessarily using should in the sense of any particular moral system which tells you should do this and you should not do this. This is just common decency. If somebody pushes someone while walking along and they may say, "Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't notice you. I was thinking about something else. I was rushing to meet that person." So now when they apologize or when they explain, at that time also what they're saying is that, yeah, I acknowledge I did the wrong thing, but this is the reason for doing the wrong thing. So a simple interaction, we probably have it so many times, that if we are talking with someone and somebody else is talking so very loudly, and then you shouldn't be talking so loudly, and then they may say, "Oh, actually, I'm talking on phone and the other person's connection is very poor. That's why I'm talking loudly." So again, the idea over here is that that person acknowledges that there is a proper way to act, and that they're giving a reason which may be valid, which may be invalid, which may be acceptable to us, which may not be acceptable to us. But the point is, they're also giving a reason. So they are also implicitly acknowledging the existence of free will. Now, if we consider from a materialistic perspective, the materialistic perspective would be that there are two materialistic perspectives. We can call them as there is functional materialism and there is fanatical materialism. So functional materialism is matter is all that matters. Okay, there might be something else beyond matter and material things and material pleasures, but I don't care about those things. That doesn't matter. And that is functional materialism. And beyond that, there is fanatical materialism. Generally, we use the word fanatical or extremist with respect to religions, but even materialism can be fanatical. When when the claim is matter is all that exists, that there is nothing beyond matter existing at all. So either of these claims, if we take functional or fanatical materialism, then the idea is that matter simply acts according to certain laws of nature. If I take this phone and if I drop it, the phone has no free will to resist. It's simply by the law of gravity, it will act. It will just fall down. So if we were simply material creatures, then that raises the question about the possibility of free will. In fact, we can take it further and say that makes the very existence of free will impossible. And this is seriously problematic. So, just a little reflection on the idea of free will suggests that there has to be something within us which is free. Now, we could, of course, go and ask the question whether the free will is unlimited. No one's free will is unlimited. Now, while sitting here, I can't just fly away from here. I can't levitate. So we don't. All our free will is within boundaries, but we do have free will, and this very existence of free will points first to the existence of something beyond matter, because matter is bound by the laws of material nature, laws such as gravity and other things, and yet human behavior is not predictable by laws. Uh, Now, scientists can, by looking at the position of the stars in the sky, celestial body, they can predict when, after 1,000 years, when the next eclipse will come, solar eclipse or lunar eclipse. That is the level of precision we can have. But no scientist can predict even what each of us will do after 100 seconds. So there is something unpredictable to human behavior. And that is because we are not governed entirely by the laws of nature. And this is what actually brings great hope to human existence. If we didn't have free will, then there would be no reason for hope. Hope can be at three different levels. One is that we hope that things will be better tomorrow. Maybe I'll have a better job. Maybe I'll have better relationships. Maybe I'll have better health. So things will be better tomorrow. Second is that I can play a part in making things better. This things becoming better is nice, but we feel a sense of accomplishment when we have done something to make things better. Okay, we were in a bad job and suddenly our boss transferred us to another job and that turns out to be good. We are happy about it. But if we worked and earned that promotion, that raise, that transfer, then we feel a sense of fulfillment. That gives us a sense of purpose. That I can play a part in making things better. And third is that I can become better. I can become better. So these three hopes, things can become better, I can play a part in making things better, and I can become better, or rather, I can make myself better. In fact, these three hopes are what give us humans reason to wake up every day, reason to face life's challenges. Now, as far as the third is concerned, that I can become better. We do a little introspection, we all can find No, maybe I can be more polite with others. Maybe I can be more orderly, more organized. So many things we can find out which we can do better. I was before this. I was in Melbourne, and my friends they are telling me that property prices are rising over there. Everywhere it seems to be property prices are rising. I was in America from California. The first time in the history of America, California experienced more emigration than immigration. People are leaving because the prices are so high over there. When big companies are leaving. So when the prices are increasing, basically staying room, and working room, that is becoming more and more expensive. So we may want a good room to live. There is one room which is huge, and that room is always available for each one of us, and that is room for improvement. That is something which it's there for all of us. So again, all these three hopes, things can become better. I can play a part in making things better, and I can make myself better. All these three hopes are important. But in one sense, things can become better. That's more, it can be automatic. I can play a part, it requires some effort. But I can make myself better, that requires the most effort. And the second and third hopes require, again, the existence of free will. Without that, we cannot have those hopes. So, this is itself, at a basic level, a pointer to the spiritual dimension in life. And the more we realize our spirituality, the freer becomes our free will. We all have free will, but our free will can be more or less free. Let me explain this with a couple of examples. Consider somebody who's an addict. Many of us may know someone who is an addict. Some of us may also be struggling with some habit which may or may not be addictive, but we want to give it up, we're not able to give it up. Consider something like alcoholism. So, how many of you think that there are two broad views about an addictive habit like alcoholism? That one is it is a moral deficiency, that that person is just not determined enough, not responsible enough to quit that habit and live more determinedly. So it is a moral deficiency. And the other view is that it is a medical disorder. That it's just like somebody gets cough. You can't just tell them stop coughing. It's beyond their control. They're going to cough. So addiction as a moral deficiency and addiction as a medical disorder. So how many of you think that addiction, say any kind, alcoholism for example, it is a moral deficiency? Anyone? One. Okay. How many of you think it is a medical disorder? Okay. Remaining is both. Okay, thank you. That's you could say that's an answer that can't go wrong. Thank you. But it is true. Hey, how things work is that I was in Canada. I was in Canberra, not Canberra, Calgary on the west coast, high up in the. It was winter over there. And I was going up a hill to a college university to give a talk. And there, while our car was going up the winding road, I saw how these snowballs are formed. Now, at the top, it is just as at the top of the hill, it's just a not even a snowball, it's a snow pebble. And as a snow pebble is there, at that time, a person could just flick it with their toe and the snow pebble would crack apart. But then, as it starts coming down, 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 it starts gaining mass and it starts gaining momentum. And then that same snowball, when it comes down to the hill, rolling forcefully, that person, leave alone cracking it with their toe, it could not just crack their toe, it could crack their body and their bones apart. So it is not a snowball, it has become a snow boulder by that time. So our habits are also like that. So somebody has never taken alcohol or never taken alcohol excessively, never taken alcohol excessively. So then at that time, I take alcohol, I don't take alcohol. That decision is like the size of a snow pebble. Yeah, I won't take this. It's over. But if they keep taking it again and again and again, then the habit inside gains momentum. The proposition from within comes with by far greater force. And when that happens, then it is almost impossible to say no. When somebody is an addict, at that time, it's like if you consider the habit to that snow object, uh, initially it is just a snow pebble. Yeah, maybe they should take. Maybe I should take it. Maybe I should not take it. Forget it. I won't take it. But that at that time, it's like a snow pebble. You just say no, it's over. But if they keep doing it, it becomes a snow boulder. At that time, it's like they just can't say no to it. So at that time, you can say it's become a medical disorder. A medical disorder doesn't necessarily mean that there is some magic medicine by which they can cure it. A medical disorder, what we mean is that it is not just a matter of willpower that will be enough for curing it. So this is a simple example to illustrate that our willpower can increase or decrease. So even an addict has willpower. They may not have the willpower to say no to the urge when it comes upon them. But at other times, maybe the urge comes to them every 6 hours. But in between those urges, they can choose what to do. They can just feel sorry for themselves. They can just be searching for money, maybe steal some money, or they can be looking for some help. Maybe they can see if they can get admitted in the rehabilitation center or whatever. So the free will is there, but it is limited, it is far lesser. So our actions can increase or decrease our free will. So we could say free will is our innate desire. At a basic level, it's a desire to choose. Should I do this? Should I do that? But around free will, there is a circle, and that circle is willpower. These two are often conflated, but they are different. So so to understand this different, let's bring in another term. And if it is confusing, let me confuse it a little bit more, then I'll clarify it. So let's take a third term, freedom. Hmm. Now, freedom, we can say, is our capacity to externally exercise our free will. If we live in a free country, then we can go to whichever part of the country we want to travel. We can, if we have the right to free speech, we can express opposition to the ruling authority or whatever. That's the capacity to exercise our our free will externally. Now, our freedom can be taken away. Suppose somebody is a criminal and they're put in jail. Now, criminal may not have freedom, but does a criminal have free will? Yeah, of course, isn't it? The free will, they can choose. They can just join some gang in the jail, and they can come out as hardened criminal, or maybe they join some adult learning course and they get some degree, they get some capacity to hold a job, and when they come out, they have opportunity for a better life. So our free will is always there with us, but our freedom can be taken away. Sometimes by factors beyond us, like the political government may become tyrannical. Sometimes we may have done some questionable actions, and that's why our freedom is restricted. So just as there can be an external reduction of our capacity to exercise our free will, similarly there can be an internal reduction, and that internal reduction refers to our willpower. So when a person has less willpower, that means they have free will, but over a very small degree. Like an addict, the free will is not, they can't say no when the urge comes, but at least in between the urges they can do something. So the now this two concepts, free will, freedom, and willpower, is three. Now I'll make one last point and we can have questions. That what spirituality does is, whatever spiritual practices we adopt, whether it is musical meditation, whether it is chanting of mantras individually, in group, or whether it is praying, whether it is yoga, whether it is any practice which awakens our higher consciousness, which makes us realize that there is more to us than our physical and mental side, that in a way elevates us. So, the metaphor I'm going to use here is that if we are in an ocean, then any wave that comes, we can try to resist it. But if it's a strong wave, it will be very difficult to resist it. We'll get swept away. But if we can hold on to something very strong, if there's an anchor that we can hold on to, then the stronger we hold on to the anchor, the less we will be swept away by the wave. So that process of holding on to the anchor is what spiritual practice is meant to be. Our spiritual practices are meant to give us an anchor to hold on to. And the more we learn to strengthen our spiritual practices, then the stronger becomes our grip on that anchor. And then when these urges come upon us, these urges may be something like to drink, to do drugs, or the urges may simply be anger or craving or jealousy, hatred. Those waves come, we will be able to say no to them. So why do we need spirituality for this? First thing is, spirituality tells us that there is something about us, that is, we are not just the waves in the ocean. We are a being different from the waves, and we have the capacity. See, the waves are just matter. The waves will move by the laws of material nature. Whichever direction the wind is coming, the waves will move. But we have free will, so we don't have to move along the waves. But we alone are not strong enough sometimes. The spirituality, first thing it tells us is that we are not the waves. We are different from the waves. And the second is, it says that there is a higher reality that we can hold on to through our spiritual practices. And that can actually increase our capacity to resist our conditionings, and thus increase our free will. Thus, we all can become freer than what we are, freer to choose responsibly, freer to do the things that really matter for us, free to do the things that will fulfill the three hopes for us. Not just hope that things become better, that we can play a part in making things better, and that we ourselves can become better. So I'll summarize. I spoke mainly 3 points today. First is, I talked about how the existence of free will is presumed in our daily dealings. Whenever we say you should not have done this, and they say, oh, I'm sorry, I did it because like this. So so but matter and materialism doesn't leave any room for free will. So therefore, the idea that there is something beyond matter, there's a part of us which is non-material, is vital for accepting the idea of free will. Then I talk about how spirituality can free our free will. In that connection, I talked about there is free will, there is freedom, there is willpower and freedom. So just as addiction is initially just a moral deficiency where we say yes when we could have said no, but at that time it's like a snow pebble. We allow it to grow, and then it can become something beyond just our willpower to control. It's a medical disorder. It's like a snow boulder. So we always have free will, but just as our freedom can be decreased, similarly our willpower can be decreased. And spirituality can increase our willpower by helping us have an anchor by holding to which we can resist the waves of our conditionings. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. So, are there any questions, comments?
I have a question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Uh, it's not correlated for, yeah, to what you just talked about, but I wanted to ask how it does Krishna sees homosexuality.
Okay. So, how does Krishna see homosexuality? Well, three different aspects to this. First is that fundamentally, the Gita's teachings as given by Krishna are that is our essential identity is spiritual. Now, the soul goes from one body to another. So, our sexuality is a part of our physical identity. It is not a part of our spirituality. Now, normally, when this is this a projector? Can we project by any chance? You have something that's complicated? Okay, anyway. So I have a PowerPoint illustrating this. But you can envision this is the body, and here there's the soul in the body. The soul is generally in the region of the heart, it is said. The soul is here. Normally, when the soul leaves the body, or when a person dies, the soul leaves this body and then soul comes to a next body. That is the normal process of transmigration. But sometimes, especially when there is a sudden or violent death, the soul is forced to leave this body, the soul rushes will go into another body. So at that time, there is some kind of disruption in the normal way of functioning. It's like say if we go rapidly from one country to another, if you come from Europe to Australia, our body experiences jet lag. And our body is here, our body is biologically in Australia, but the body's circadian rhythm and the body's bioclock is working as if it is Europe. So similarly, when a soul moves suddenly from one body to the next body, the soul sometimes experiences what we can call as a transmigration lag. That means the soul is in this body. It's working? Okay. How far is it? Should I come up then, or what do I do? Thank you. Please do this here. Raise this. So it's more accessible. Okay. So, see something if necessary here. So there are these three levels of existence. There's the soul. You see my cursor? Okay. There's the soul, the mind, and the body. And normally, yeah, I'll come back to this function of. Okay, I'll explain that concept a little later. So, how the soul exists in the body is that the soul is present inside these two layers, the mind and the body. Now, normally, when transmigration happens, the soul. Okay, let me make it full screen. Yeah. So the soul, which was here in this old body, the soul leaves this body and goes out of this body. and then after that the soul enters into the next body. This is how normally transmigration happens. And then we identify with the next body, and that's how we live. But when there is transmigration lag, the soul is physically in this body. Hmm? But the mind is still attached to this body. The mind is still identifying with this body. You see my cursor? So, for example, if somebody was in a female body in a previous life, and in this life they are in a male body. Now they are right now in a male body, but their mind is identifying themselves with the female body, and that converse can also happen. So this is why a person's sexual orientation may be different from what their body's physical orientation is. So to go backwards here, okay. No, sorry. Close this first. So there is the question of identity is a complex question. If I go over here, so we have three levels of identity. At the level of the soul, that's our essential identity. At the level of our body is our physical identity. But it is our mind that determines our felt identity. Felt identity means that who I think I am. So if somebody is say 5.5 feet in Japan, that person may be considered tall. But if somebody is say 5.5 feet in say a country where everybody is tall, that same person goes, I'm very short. That's our felt identity. So what is happening over here is so normally speaking, our felt identity plus our physical identity, that is our bodily identity. Of course, our bodily identity is different from our essential identity as spiritual beings. But what happens is, in some cases, the felt identity is different from the physical identity. Why? Because of the transmigration lag. So that means the body is the physical body, the physical side is in a particular gender, but the mind is associated with something else. And that causes this conflict. So, what is our bodily identity? Is it our felt identity or is it our physical identity? And so this is a broad reason, understanding why some people may have homosexual orientation. And this also explains why some people may have a transgender orientation. That they feel that I'm just not home in this body. Now, the important thing is that we are not, our physical side is only a small part of who we are. Our essential identity is spiritual. And the key point is that we can find lasting fulfillment by realizing our spirituality. And for the process of realizing our spirituality, or while following the path of realizing our spirituality, we need to manage our sexual energy. So if the sexual energy completely consumes us, even if it's a normal straight heterosexual relationship, there also if a person is consumed by that, then that person can't think about anything spiritual. Is constantly thinking about where I can find the next sexual partner or the next opportunity for sexual gratification. And that applies whether it's heterosexual or homosexual. So the focus is on raising our consciousness above our body identity. Now, how we go about doing that, that is something which every individual, based on their particular situation, will have to negotiate and decide. Does it address your question?
Yes, yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Pran Guruji. Just in the explanation, is that related to the pranamaya kosha, manomaya kosha, vijnanamaya kosha?
It's a good question. Are these related with the koshas? Possibly. See, generally, this word, the anna and prana, there are 5 levels of consciousness, you could say, associated with certain levels of energy. So you could say it's related to the manomaya kosh breathing. So anna and prana is basically survival and food. So whatever a sexual orientation, we all need food and we all want to survive. That's common. But at the manomaya kosh, there could be a difference. Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu.
So talking about free will, it's although most of us in the beginning agreed that we have free will. When one thinks of it, you might think that doesn't seem like we have free will. Seems like we're controlled at every step of our lives. Like we're forced to take birth, body's forced to grow old and get diseased and die, and we're forced to work just to maintain ourselves. So many things are forced upon us against our will.
Yeah.
And in Krishna consciousness, we hear that we have, Prabhupada said we have minute free will.
Yes.
So maybe you can talk to us about show us how we do have free will, and point out that what is that minute free will that we all have.
Okay. So we can approach the same issue from very different perspectives. So at a philosophical level, uh, if there were no free will at all, then the wisdom texts such as the Bhagavad Gita, which give guidelines, do this, don't do this, they would be meaningless. Because if we have no free will, then we are going to simply act according to our programming. So commentators like both Vishwanath Thakur and Baldev Vidyabhushan, in their Bhagavad Gita commentary as well in the Vedanta Sutra commentary, say that if we had no free will, then scripture would become useless. The scripture says, do this, don't do this. And we wouldn't be able to do that. And if there were no free will at all, then the whole idea of karma, that we are held responsible for our actions. So it would be almost like some of us are deliberately made with, say, we are made with greater anger issues, greater maybe uncontrollable craving, maybe uncontrollable level of greed or lust or whatever. So these impel us to do wrong, and then we are held culpable for doing wrong. So that would make actually God evil. That God has made me short tempered, and now God will punish me for being short tempered. So the rejection of free will actually distort God into the devil. So, from one perspective, for the very existence of God and for the very rationality of scripture, free will is essential. Now, when Srila Prabhupada speaks in his books, he's approaching from a different perspective. In modern and postmodern societies, there is enormous emphasis on an assertion of human autonomy. I am free. I am free to do whatever I want. We may say we have conquered space, we have done this, we have done that. And yes, from the perspective of, say, what human beings could do 200 years ago and what we can do now, we certainly have significantly more level of control on some things as compared to the past. You can just click a few buttons and call anybody in any part of the world, summon information from any part of the world. So that control is there. But although human autonomy has its place, and although we do have control over many things, or we may have more control because of technology, but in spite of that, at a broader level of existence, our control is limited. That, as you say, rightly said, all of us have to age. Our physical looks will deteriorate, our physical health will deteriorate. We all have to die. So, from that broader perspective, as you said, we all have to work for a living. Now, of course, some of us may have work which we like, some of us have a work which we don't like. Lesser or greater stress within that. But the point is, Prabhupada was challenging the idea of human autonomy, which is so ingrained within the modern psyche, and the idea that technology has made us almost like omnipotent. So, from that perspective, what we think the amount of free will we have and the actual free will that we have, there's a huge difference between the two. And that difference can be encapsulated by what is said minute free will. Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions? Yes, please.
So, how do you see the difference between instinct given to animals and their level of free will, and we have a primitive brain, instinctual, reactive, but we have a larger part of our brain which can investigate consciousness? How do we see animals as far as free will?
Okay, that's a good question. Maybe I can illustrate something with this. So, the question broadly is that we have, so animals have instincts and we also have a primitive brain. So, how exactly does this work? So, essentially, you can say that. So, basically, a fundamental difference between various species. If we consider broad x-axis and y-axis, then a fundamental difference between us is there is what we can call as inherited characteristics and there are learned characteristics. So inherited characteristics and there are learned characteristics. If you consider these two, sorry about this. Forget it. These are inherited and these are learned. Now in animals, the inherited characteristics are very high. And the learned characteristics are very low. Let's put it to make it a little clearer. Let me make it. Let me put this as inherited. We put this as learned. So this graph usually goes. So if these are animals, here we have animals, and here we have humans. Humans. So what happens is in animals, the inherited characteristics are very high. So we could say like this. Here, this graph goes like this. So basically, in animals, the inherited characteristics are high, the learned characteristics are very low. In humans, the inherited characteristics are low, the learned characteristics are high. And this, how can we learn? Because we have free will. Animals, now do they have free will? They have, now in animals, instincts can be very powerful, but they are like programmed intelligence. So it is already the programming is there and it doesn't change substantially. So a cow may be very intelligent to find a way to some place where there is grass. Now, even if there are 100 obstacles, it will sneak in this way, that way, get to the grass, it will eat grass. But the cow doesn't have the idea that maybe I should cook this grass. Maybe I could put some sugar in it, it will become tastier. Now, we humans, we also search for food. But then we don't just search for food, we also try to improve the taste of the food. That's a one simple example of the inherited characteristics can also be brilliant in their own way. Mhm. And some of the inherited characteristics in animals may be better than humans. Like birds, if they're taken 100 miles away from where they are, blindfolded, they just move around a little bit and they will orient themselves and get back to their nest. We humans, if we are abducted and taken 100 miles away, we'll have to call 911 or someone to find out where we are and get back. So in some ways, their inherited characteristics may be far better than ours, but their capacity to learn is far lesser than ours.
So you could say that we have software that's upgradable.
Nice way of putting it, yes.
And they don't, really.
Yeah, I would say upgradable, or you can even say reprogrammable. Upgradable, reprogrammable, significantly. Yes.
So that's really the gift that's given to us by Krishna.
That's the gift that is associated with the human form. And it is this which also enables us to do something more. All living beings will seek pleasure. Now, we humans seek more pleasure than what our body can naturally offer us. Now, we can do it in two ways: by trying to improve the quality of bodily pleasure. Like I said, we can try to create hundreds and thousands of delicacies and we have hundreds of cuisines. Or we can look for some pleasure higher than bodily pleasure. So if I consider this, the soul is here, this is the soul, and this is the body. And these are, you can say, sense objects. These are the worldly objects that give us pleasure. So what we can do is we can we seek pleasure over here. We search pleasure. So what we can try to do is we can improve the quality of the sense objects, and we can try to seek pleasure. Or the soul is here, the body is here, the sense objects are here. Now we can try to seek pleasure in something beyond the sense objects. This is a different, it's a border over here. Let's put this too close. Two different diagrams. So here above, this is the material reality, and above this there is a spiritual reality. So we humans can seek pleasure in something beyond matter, in spiritual reality. And we can try to improve the sense objects that we have. And that's fine enough to some extent. If we can have cooked food which is more tasty, then why eat raw food? If we can, that's fine. But when we start thinking that improving this will alone will provide fulfillment to us, then we are mistaken. Because no matter how wealthy we become, no matter how tasty the food we have, we can't eat 24 hours a day. No matter how attractive a sexual partner somebody might get. No, the body is not designed where we can have sex 24 hours a day. But if we raise our consciousness to the spiritual level, we connect with the ultimate spiritual reality. That connection can give us joy 24 hours a day for the rest of our life. In fact, for the rest of eternity. And that's why our learned behavior, our learned characteristics, they are the key to finding higher happiness. Thank you for that question. Hare Krishna. Any last question or comment? Yes, please.
Prabhu, up there on an earlier slide, you showed the different identities for the soul. The mind was a felt identity, the soul was a sensual identity, and I can't remember
the physical identity.
Physical identity, yeah. So it seems and you mentioned that also the scriptures have a lot of do's and don'ts, which imply choice, which requires free will to act upon.
Yes.
It seems to me that different sections of the scriptures describe the essential identity variously. In the sense that, according to the Bhagavad idea, our identity our individual identity and hence the capacity for free will is eternal, whereas, say, in a Brahman type emphasis in the scriptures, the process of free will seems to be a problem, and it's identified more with the activities of the body, and therefore binding us and separating us from our spiritual identity. I'm trying to.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
So let me see. So now here, if I go, there are two things again as we discussed. We'll go over here. That, see, here there is the soul, and the soul is currently, we could say, bound in matter, and this is like a prison for the soul. The body is restricting the soul, and all spiritual traditions say that we need to get out of matter. This matter is here, and the soul belongs here. So this is their idea of liberation. Now there is a difference only with respect to what is the liberated status of the soul. So now, actually, even in the those texts which talk about oneness a little bit more. So in the bhakti tradition, the idea is that in bhakti there is the soul over here, and we could say here there is the supreme soul, and there is the bond of love. This is essentially love. So love binds, unites the finite and the infinite. This is liberation in the bhakti tradition. Now what happens is, there is another tradition which is, you can call the monist tradition. What the monist tradition says is, actually their idea is that this is, we are souls right now, and there is the idea of a supreme soul, and linking this is consciousness. Now their idea of liberation is that this idea of selfhood, it is an illusion. The idea of the divine is an illusion. So all that exists is just consciousness. And they say that non-differentiated consciousness, that is the liberated state. So in that non-differentiated consciousness, there is just existence. But now there are several problems with this idea. First is that if there is no individuality at all, then who is there to experience liberation? So we may say, okay, the whole idea of I-ness itself is an illusion. Fine. But then the sense idea of I-ness is there right now. And we say, okay, I will become liberated. But who will experience that liberation? It's like saying, okay, my eyes are causing me a lot of pain. So the solution is, there are two schools of thought. One says, okay, just rip out your eyes. A little pain initially, but afterward there will be no pain. The other says, just kill yourself, and there will be no pain at all. Well, okay, but that's actually a solution worse than the problem. If I have pain in the eyes, then I need to remove, maybe it's cataract, I need to remove the cataract. Then I can have normal vision. So basically, there is a misdiagnosis of the problem. When this is the idea that, so the idea is that free will causes problems. Free will, because of our free will, we may misdirect our attraction towards temporary things which appear enjoyable but which eventually get us into trouble. And they say that is the cause of problem. And therefore the solution is that we are attracted to forms, so all forms are illusory. We are attracted to people, all sense of personhood is illusory. We are attracted by desires, all desires are illusory. So that is their idea. But the problem is that, say, if somebody is very sick and they are in a lot of pain, so every movement of the body causes them pain. And now such a person may just, if I can just lie motionless, I will have so much relief. Now, that is true, but first of all, it's very, very difficult to lie motionless. And even if one becomes motionless, how long can one stay motionless? So the cause of pain is not motion. The cause of pain is the disease in the body. Maybe it's arthritis or whatever it is. And the cure for the pain is not stopping motion. The cure for pain is treating arthritis. So similarly, the problem is not free will. The problem is not form. The problem is not personality. The problem is self-centeredness, is selfishness. When I think that everything and everyone exists for my enjoyment, then I try to instrumentalize everyone for my pleasure. And that is what entangles me. But if we move from selfishness to selflessness, we act in a mood of love and service. We direct that propensity towards the ultimate reality. Then that very free will bring joy. Because here I talked about love. Now there is no possibility of love if there is no free will. There might be just existence, but that existence is like somebody who is sick and they says, okay, I just want to be motionless. And that will be perfection. That's not perfection. That's definitely relief. But that idea that this is what I should be aiming for is coming from a misdiagnosis of the problem. So the problem is not free will. The problem is the tendency to misuse the free will. And the more we learn to redirect our free will so that we are seeking to love not temporary things, but we are loving the eternal source of all things, then that very free will can become the basis for us to experience enduring love and enduring joy thereof. So, okay. You can let me know how much time we have. Few more minutes? Yes, please.
Hello, I would like to know what you can tell me about dementia and Alzheimer's. My mother is suffering with dementia, and she was a person with free will, and now I don't know how you see. Is it so that we can show compassion and love to her because she no longer has the capacity to show it to others?
Yes, thank you. It's a difficult situation. Now, the soul, again to just, the soul is here and the soul is in a body. Now, the body is what the soul uses to function, normally speaking. So I'm talking, I'm using my throat and my speaking capacity. And that's how we normally function. Now, sometimes some of our bodily capacities can deteriorate and even become dysfunctional. So, for example, some people may lose their power of speaking. Some people may there's an accident in which they lose their legs. Then they can't walk. Somebody may be a surgeon and they lose their hands in an accident. They can't do anything. So the soul's capacity to function can be sometimes limited by the body. The body's capacity is going smaller. So I shown the body smaller over here. So now this can happen in various ways. But the most impairing is when the brain's capacity decreases. So how it is that you can say the soul is here, then this, if I then to put it another way, the body is here, and the soul is linked to the body through the mind. And if I take this further, the soul is here, the mind is here, and now if I make this a little bigger, this is the body, and here the interface of the mind with the body is the brain. So now the soul is the source of consciousness. The consciousness comes consciousness comes through the soul, from the soul, through the mind, through the body to the outer world. So if my eyes were damaged, then the light, so consciousness is like, say, a flashlight. It's a light of awareness. So if I had a flashlight over here, the light comes out over here like this. So like that, the soul's consciousness comes from the mind through the body. And now if my eyes were blinded, then I can't see. But the light of awareness is still coming. The conscious and the current of let's not use the word light because we are talking about blindness. The current of consciousness as an energy of awareness is coming, and sometimes people who are blind, they may have acute, very sharp hearing. That consciousness is there, and they can hear and they can discern by that. But so when one organ is damaged, the consciousness is still coming through the body and functioning through other limbs. But what happens is when the brain is damaged, the brain is deteriorated, this consciousness is coming, it comes still here, it doesn't come over here. Or you can say it comes dotted. Like people who also have dementia, sometimes they have phases of lucidity. And it's like almost like the old person we knew is back. And then within minutes, they're just gone again. So now we can say that the body that we have with all its resources, the body is like a rented vehicle. And the body that we have, it's a rented vehicle which we have for a particular amount of time. And that this vehicle that we have is based on our past karma. So sometimes this rented vehicle will be taken away from us. When it is completely taken away, that's the time of death. But even before that, sometimes some parts of the vehicle may stop working. So at that time, as you rightly said, I gave the all philosophical discussion. So at that time, we understand that this person, now the bodily functionality, or even the neural functionality in this case, has decreased substantially. But so that is an opportunity for us to render service, for us to take care of that person. And the important thing is that the soul, so at a physical level, we can do certain things for them, but maybe dementia is irreversible, we can't do much for them. But at the level of the soul, we can always benefit them. So if there are spiritual vibrations, so if there is spiritual stimuli, then that can actually benefit the soul, that can awaken the soul. That's why if there is some spiritual sound like the chanting of the Hare Krishna mantra, or a spiritual ambience is created with some sacred imagery or a sacred aromas, sacred fluids, so then what will happen by that is they will benefit at a spiritual level. The body is at a level of irreversible damage now, but the soul is going to continue to exist, and the soul can be awakened even at that time. And that wherever their soul goes after this particular bodily engagement, there they will be more awakened, they will be more elevated. And we can see this not just as an opportunity for service, we can actually see such a situation as an opportunity for selfless service. Because what happens is normally, whenever we do anything for someone, we expect that person to do something for us in return. We do something for them, we expect them at the very least they should appreciate us, they should thank us. And yes, that is natural human expectation. But we grow when we learn selfless service. And so we can see this as an opportunity to grow spiritually by learning the virtue, learning the value of selfless service. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Okay, last question, please.
Just a quick one, Guruji. Pranam. So when you talk about the different philosophy, was that Vedanta philosophy and Sankhya, duality and non-duality?
Yeah, within Vedanta there are two, Dvaita and Advaita. Within Sankhya also there is 24 Sankhya, 25 Sankhya, 26 Sankhya. Yeah, so I was talking about The difference with 24 Sankhya is completely materialistic. There's nothing beyond matter. 25 Sankhya is Advaita, where there's only one spirit beyond matter. 26 Sankhya is there is the finite spirit and the infinite spirit. So, thank you very much for your thoughtful questions. Hare Krishna. So, as was mentioned in the introduction, I have written some 27 books. I have a few of those books. In case any of you would like to have, they're available here. So, most of what I spoke today was based on the Bhagavad Gita. And so, the concept of free will, willpower, freedom, I explained that in this book called Bhagavad Gita Insights. This is about 100 reflections on the Bhagavad Gita. And many of the diagrams I was drawing, there are about 80 diagrams which illustrate this. So 100 articles, each of 2 pages, so you can easily read whichever one which you like. This is the Gita. Do we have free will? And what exactly is yoga? What is karma? What is destiny? These kind of concepts I explain in this book. Then this is relishing Bhagavad Gita. I talked about bhakti as the bond of love between the finite and the infinite soul. So the Bhagavad Gita is a book of philosophy, but it's also a book where divinity is expressing love for humanity through the medium of sharing philosophical wisdom. So this is relishing Bhagavad Gita. This actually helps to understand that bhakti bond of love between the finite and the infinite. And this is mindfulness, 365 reflections for daily mindfulness based on the Bhagavad Gita. This is if you would like to apply yoga principles in your daily life. So, how to become less judgmental with others, how to be more sensitive in our speech, and how to be less ritualistic and more aware in our actions, how to resist temptations, how to face adversities and grow through them. So, there are about 50, 60 articles in each of these sections. There are 365 articles like this. And the table of contents itself is around 20 pages. So you could just glance through table of contents, whichever article you like, you can read that. And then we have here, yeah, and this is 365 quotes inspired by the Bhagavad Gita. So each of these is simple quotes. So mind your mind before you mind someone else's mind. So there are quotes like that. The truth may be bitter, but it doesn't have to be spoken bitterly. This is inspired by 635 in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is also a very accessible way to get some spiritual reflection on a daily basis. If you Google these quotes, they'll take you to my website Gita Daily. There's an article explaining that. But even without that, this calendar, this 365 days calendar, you can use that. It doesn't have a year, so you can reuse it next year also. These 4 things are available if you want to take it as a set. It's all available also at a discount. I can sign some of the books if you want. And otherwise, my Gita Daily website is there online, GITADAILY, gitadaily.com. You'll find a lot of content over there in case you would like to explore. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.